name is Fred Hadley, and I'm the publisher of the Village Century, which is a newsletter inside Century Village, Boca Raton, which is located in District 5 of the Palm Beach County Commission. And we have the honor today to be interviewing our District 5 County Commissioner, Maria Sachs. How are you, Maria?
Doing wonderful, doing wonderful. Thank you, Fred, for this opportunity.
Oh, of course. Just a brief bio. I got this off Wikipedia. It says Maria Sachs is a Democratic politician from Florida. She was a member of the Florida Senate from 2010 to 2016, representing parts of Broward and Palm Beach County. Previously, she served 2 terms in the Florida House of Representatives, representing part of Southern Palm Beach County from 2006 until her election to the Senate. After her seat was redistricted in 2016, she opted not to seek re-election and was hired as the executive director of Innovation Florida, a nonprofit advocacy organization. So let me just say, I want to just start by saying in 2010, when you were our state senator, you appeared at a rally in Century Village for Charlie Crist, and who was running at that time for governor. And you introduced former Congressman Robert Wexler. And during the introduction, you managed to turn the mangling of his book title into a great big joke. Let's take a look.
And I am privileged to give you our favorite son, our fire-eating liberal, fire-breathing, fire-eating, fire-extinguishing, you name it. This man will stand up, and you know why I say he will stand up? Because he has stood up for it. This is our own Robert Wexler, everybody. Robert Wexler.
Okay, so do you remember that?
No. I remember how wonderful Congressman Robert Wexler was for us.
Yes.
And it was just a wonderful
Left
representative.
politics and went into Middle Eastern.
Right. I think he works for, he left Congress to work for an Israeli group. And I'm sure that they are really so much better having our Congressman Robert Wexler with him. You know, he was also in the state. He's just been everything for us, and done everything for the people in Palm Beach County. And I just have he was my neighbor as well. So I just have such tremendous respect. We've had some great representatives here, Fred, you know, when you think about it. Congressman Ron Klein, Robert Wexler, Congressman Ted Deutsch. And now Congresswoman Lois Frankel. We have really have grown some great leaders for our county and for our people here.
All right, now getting back to the county, continuing with your political career, in 2020, you were elected to the Palm Beach County Board of Commissioners representing District 5, which includes Century Village, Boca Raton. For years, Democrats dominated the county commission, but last year the commission makeup shifted from 6-1 Democratic to 4-3 Republican. So you now find yourself in the minority. Tell us a little about the commission before we get into specific issues. Who are they? How many are they? Whom do they represent? And what is their mission? What do they do?
Well, it's very interesting because Palm Beach County has 7 commissioners, and each one of us represents a certain geographic area. Our numbers are about the same. We all represent about 200,000 people in each district, some a little more, some a little less, but it's about the same to keep it balanced. And it's interesting because even though each of us represents a certain geographic area, we come together to do what's best for the county as a whole. So what is best for my district will be best for all the other districts, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6 and 7. So this is what we strive to do rather than make it provincial for only one district.
So,
When you said that I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, I was going to say, but you really haven't defined, what you do. In other words, you're not a legislative group. You don't make laws. Can you just, in 25 words or less, say exactly what you do? If you don't make laws and you're not judges, who are you? Are you part of the executive branch? Would that be correct?
I
Or,
wouldn't say that we're part of the executive branch. I think that we don't have that type of republic setup as you would find in the federal government. But what we do is, it's very mundane, but it's very important. We collect the garbage. We construct roads. We make sure that health and human services are taken care of for folks. We make sure that that the schools are in safe places and that the school buses run on time. We work in conjunction with law enforcement, with the sheriff's office. We work in conjunction, of course, with the school district. So I'll never forget one day I walked into a meeting and there was Commissioner Bert Arenson and there was Congressman Robert Wexler. Now, this goes back a long time. I'm in this Florida house. I walk into this meeting. I'm going to introduce the two of them. I would imagine that people would go up to our Congressman, Robert Wexler, and want to get a picture of him. No, they went up to Bert Arenson, the commissioner. And so Robert Wexler came up to me and whispered in my ear. You see, he said, people are more concerned about when their garbage gets picked up than foreign policy. And it's very true. It's important what we do. It's not very, shall we say, earth shattering or political, which is good. But we take care of the mundane things. The sidewalk is cracked. There's non-native trees that are being invasive in certain areas. This is what we do. We take care of the people's concerns. Keeps us all very busy, all seven of us. It's a good group. And I know that you said I was in a minority, but there's not much political issues that we do handle. There's not much political about garbage pickup and roads. And that's a good thing. And I've got a great group of, as mayor, I feel very honored to be working with 6 other commissioners who are really, really honest, ethical, and good people.
Mayor Sachs, you mentioned Bert Arenson, who of course was, I believe, District 5 commissioner for the longest of times, and people felt that he was around for a little bit too long. And what happened is that I guess it was the voters decided that they wanted to place term limits on the office of commissioners. What are the term limits that you are held to right now? Are you in favor of term limits, or do you think it's a bad thing? Because we're going through a very similar thing on a local level here in Century Village. So we'd like to get your feelings, just in general, the whole concept of term limits.
Well,
And
when our forefathers created and drafted the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they put forth the idea that it should be a citizenry government. That is, our republic would be governed by people, by the citizens, and not by people who are, shall we say, career politicians. So consequently, I think that term limits are an excellent thing. I have 2 4-year terms, and I welcome them. And after 8 years, it's enough. And new people should come in. Same thing that I felt in the Florida legislature. We have 8-year terms, 4 years in the Florida House, and 6 years in the Senate. And I think it's when you're done, you're done, and it's time for somebody else to step in. So I would hope one day that that'll happen to our Congress, because I think that Congress needs to be a little more freshened with new people coming in. And I look forward to younger people coming in and filling in all the positions of government. And I welcome them, and I try to foster and mentor them as well. So yes, I'm a great believer of term limits.
So of course, your position is 180 from Bert's, who, by the way, was known as the godfather of Palm Beach County, the late Bert Arenson, I should say. I did videotape his funeral. I thought he was a very larger than life figure, shall we say. Bert Arenson said, we already have term limits. If we do a lousy job, you don't vote us in the next time. Well, why are you throwing away good leaders just because of a certain number of years? Well, what do you have to say to the late Bert
Well,
Arenson?
that's an interesting point, and I recall that Congressman L.C. Hastings used to say the same thing. The bottom line is this: there are many different ways to serve. I like to serve. This is part of my DNA. Is what my father taught me. Everybody should serve his country or her country. If not in the military, then in some type of government service. I enjoyed my stay in the Florida House and the Florida Senate, and then I left. And then I started a non-for-profit with human trafficking as well as with Innovation Florida. And now I'm serving as a county commissioner. Maybe when I'm done, I'll see if there's a spot in the SWA, Solid Waste Authority for me. But the bottom line is this. Yes, there are great leaders, but there are many ways to serve, and we need to recirculate it. And that's what happens with term limits. I think it's a fine idea. It's really ingrained in our Constitution that we need a citizenry government. So rather than continue to go on in the Florida legislature, I wanted to come back home and take care of local issues. I've been a resident here of the Ag Reserve for over 35 years. There are issues here that are very important to me, and this is something that I could bring my experience. You see, term limits are good, but you also need some good government experience. I had 10 years of government experience in the Florida legislature, and I'm bringing that to bear and to help in my service here in the county commission.
Okay, now you provided an excellent segue into our next subject, which is the Ag Reserve. So a lot of people are new to Palm Beach County, especially since COVID. We've had a tremendous influx of people, mostly from the Northeast. I would say New York is predominantly, Long Island is, of which I come from that part of the world. I've been here since 2008, of course. So what is this agricultural reserve? And just briefly, a short history. I think it started in 1999. Just fill us in on what it is and why it's important to the lifestyle here in South County.
It's a very good question, Fred. I'm glad you asked it because years ago in the 1990s, they found that there was a swath of land that was warmed by the Gulf Stream to the east, and to the west by these storms that develop over the Everglades. And there's just one little swath of land in Southeast Florida that never gets any frost and has a particular type of soil, that can grow amazing things that cannot grow anywhere else. And these are the things that I learned in my experience in the Senate when I worked on vice chair of the Agricultural Committee. So I learned this in my service in the Florida Senate. What happens is this: the land to the east, that is all along the beach area, is sandy. And there we get good coconut trees and other type Washingtonians. And then to the west, we have, of course, the beautiful Everglades, and they have that famous muck that they talk about, that they'll say their soil is their treasure. And it is. There that grows beautiful sweet corn, and of course, the world's supply of sugar, which is pretty, very important for the state of Florida and certainly for Palm Beach County. But right in between these two areas is a type of soil that is unique in the entire state of Florida. And here you'll find grown some of the finest Chinese vegetables that Roland Yee, Y-E-E farms, have been farming for generations. You'll also find with Bednar's and Elderman and Bowman's, they grow beautiful artichokes, they grow peppers, and they grow tomatoes, as well as these sweet, like dragon fruits and these very exotic types of fruits, not grown anywhere else in the Southeast Florida. So I think it's very exciting to have this. So I learned a lot of this when I was in the Senate, taking a sort of a statewide view of how important this land is. So when I decided to run for county commission, it was with the idea that I was going to protect this land. Now, I'm not the first, because in the 1990s, a group of people realized that this is a unique piece of land. And so they got together and they wrote a master plan for how this development was going to occur in the Ag Reserve. Two words to remember: preserve and protect. Preserve and protect the agricultural reserve. And this is what so many people will repeat over and over again. Now, what does it mean to preserve and protect the agricultural reserve? It means this. It means, and Bert Arenson and Karen Marcus and Mary McCarthy, many of them were involved in the writing of this, as well as previous commissioners and farmers and scientists and environmentalists. What it means: open spaces, land that does what the highest and best use of that land is to grow agriculture. However, they also noted that they need to have certain areas that will have commercial, so that the folks who live in the agricultural reserve will have markets. They will have, being a Boca gal, they need nail salons and beauty shops, and they need, fine places to dine and entertainment. And that would be along Atlantic Avenue and 441. And it would also be in Boynton Beach Boulevard and 441 all the way to the Turnpike. And so that's why you have these centers of growth and commerce in those two areas. Other than that, keep it, preserve, and protect. Preserve, protect, and promote agriculture in the agricultural reserve.
Okay, so what's been happening, of course, is Florida's become a growth state, a huge growth state, because of our climate and so on. COVID, of course, accentuated that. People learned what we knew for many years, that this is indeed paradise. So now we have this conflict between the needs for more housing and more development, and the bond that was made to the voters that we're going to keep this land free. So what happened is, somewhere along the line, one of the largest developers in Florida, GL Holmes, which, for those that are not familiar, it stands for good luck. That's their corporate motto. They acquired the so-called Hyder West parcel on State Road 7, just north of the Clintmore. And this is west of 441, where I believe that there are even more stringent rules. I think it's an 80-20 ag to development versus 60-40 east of State Road 7. Anyway, they decided that they wanted their land, which they bought. I guess they own that land, even though it's in the ag reserve. And they decided that they also have a parcel of land up north in Loxahatchee, which I've been up there and it's very beautiful, but unfortunately, nobody really wants to do much developing up there because it's not South Florida like Boca or Lauderdale or, and so on, Delray Beach. So they proposed a swap. So why don't you take it from there? What was their plan? Why were you against it? And what did they do in order to try to effectuate the plan that you took issue with?
Well, first of all, let me just say, as I have said consistently throughout my tenure as county commissioner, is that GL Developer does a very good job in developing very, very good units, whether they're townhouses or houses. They do a good job, and they're an excellent community partner. They're very charitable, and they support a lot of our good charities. What occurred at Hyder West is interesting, Fred, because we have a 60-40 rule. That is, and this is all part of the whole entire ag reserve, is that a developer can develop 40, let's make it simple. Let's say it's 100 acres. The developer is able to develop on 40 acres, but leave 60 open, open. And that's a 60-40 rule, which you alluded to, which has been the rule for quite a while. A number of years ago, before I became in the county commission, GL and others were given an exception. And the exception was this: you can develop 100 acres, but what you have to do is you have to take that 60 that you would have kept as preserve, you can buy that and put it somewhere else. Wow. So what GL did, which was very, very smart, is they developed 100% in areas like Lotus and the Bridges and all those developed GL homes along Lyons Road between Clipmore and all the way up to Boynton Beach. They developed it completely, and they said that 60% we're going to preserve on Hyder West. This was done legally with the authority of the county commission at that time. I wasn't there, but at that time they gave them permission to do it. And so they did. And Hyder West was open land. It was being farmed, and it was a preserve, which means even if you own it, you can't develop it. Why? Because they bought that to preserve. That was an agreement that this developer, private entity, made with the government. Now, the way that I see government and the citizens is this: you make a deal with the government, you keep it. I've been an attorney 40 years. A contract is a contract. If you want to get out of the contract, come back, we'll renegotiate it. But don't say, I own this and I'm going to get out of it, and I'll put a lot of sweeteners in there, because a deal is a deal is a deal.
Okay, wait, I'm just going to interrupt you 1 second.
Sure.
I want to show you another brief clip of you at the BOC hearing on October 24th, and you were talking about sweeteners. So
I actually have one more point, and I know, Commissioner Sachs, you don't want to say this, but there is one more benefit. This community would allow us an additional egress from our property. Right now, there is only one way to get out of our community.
Excuse me if I may.
Oh, sorry.
Another benefit.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned to Commissioner Woodward that your Stonebridge is receiving a couple $1 million.
Right.
But when I asked you that.
You said 7 million, and that was
Oh,
wrong.
no, it wasn't 7. What is it?
4.
4. Was 7 before. But anyways,
I
4,
don't know
I'm
anything
gonna
about
say,
that.
What you know now is that it's 4 million,
Yeah.
not 7. Secondly, you're going to get golf equities. There's going to be some golf memberships as a sweetener. And the third is that there's going to be isn't there going to be a connectivity between Stonebridge and the Hyder West?
From an emergency standpoint, right now, Stonebridge only has one entrance and exit to its property. When there are accidents, when there's something going on, and that is blocked on 441, where the Oaks is right across the street there, we don't have any way of getting in and out. So there will be an emergency egress through that property, through that exit, and that is something that's very important to our community.
I'm not sure if you
because-
do that today we discussed 8,777 additional trips that will be exiting and entering the Hyder West community, which is contiguous to Stonebridge. So the traffic situation on 441, which is not even on the 5-year plan for FDOT to expand, will affect Stonebridge. So I just want you to know the facts. You've only been on there 6 months. I hope you stay on. Thank you very much.
okay, I was sitting right behind that couple, by the way, and you were a prosecutor, weren't you?
Yes, 7 years.
I can tell. Now let's talk about sweeteners. All right. Your Republican colleague, Marcy Woodward, said there are so many sweeteners in this deal, her teeth are starting to rot, which is a bit of an extreme reaction. But, to use a Jewish expression, is this kosher? Are they allowed to do this? I mean, these are what we call legal bribes. In other words, they divide and conquer. They go to one aspect of the community and say, well, we'll give you this, and if you'll support us. And they go to the religious community and say, we're going to build a shul if you'll support us. And they go to the writing community and say, we're going to build a barn or whatever. And, it sounds like they've got tremendous support, but what they're doing is factionalizing the community. What do you have to say about this tactic? Is it legal? Is it moral? Is I guess what I'm asking you.
Well, you did a great job just now, Fred, to explain it. You know, I don't fault any developer of trying to do things for the community. What I do fault is that this was not made transparent. I want to know, everybody needs to know what they're telling people that they're going to give them and exactly where it is. And I'll tell you what I really found fault with, because, you know, I grew up in a working class neighborhood in Detroit. And I'm a little bit sensitive when it comes to making sure that everybody has the same equality of benefits, of opportunity, let's say. And I will say, and I'm going to point out, and I have no personal interest, but Uptown that was developed in Boca Raton, West Boca, which is my district, when they do their workforce housing, you can't tell if your neighbor is workforce housing, and because everything is exactly the same. And I like that aspect. In this particular Hyder West development that they were proposing, those who paid full price had one entrance and exit, and those who were workforce shared the entrance and exit to a horse stable. Now, it rubbed me wrong. It rubbed me wrong, and I don't know if I even made it a big deal, but look,
you did make a big deal. If I could just stop you for 1 second, I do have a final clip, and I promise.
But so they're going to have a separate entrance. They're going to have separate recreational areas. They will not be allowed to enter into where the folks who can afford the houses, their community center or their pool, and that's part of the site plan. That's separate, right? Has this been done in any other community in Palm Beach County where we have separate entrance and exit for those who can't afford the big houses? I'm looking at Uptown, and everything is exactly the same. Whether you make a lot of money or whether you don't make a lot of money, everything is the same. Have we built anything like this before here? And I'd like to know where it's at.
Yes, Vice Mayor. So typically with respect to rental workforce housing units, those can kind of move around within a building. So it's not a separate section within a building of apartments where the workforce units would be located. What we've seen with the for sale workforce housing units, there are other examples where there are different pods essentially within the development. So there will be a pod where the workforce housing units are located, and then a pod where the market rate units are. So there are examples of that.
Where are these? And I'm sure they're not located in the Ag Reserve. I'd like to know, because I think that the separate is a little bit bothersome to me, and I just like to make sure that we follow the federal rules when it comes to making sure that families in workforce housing have equal opportunities as those who live in that gated community.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you.
That's the final share. I wanted to use your own words at
Sure.
the meeting, and you spoke very well on that. And he gave a couple of examples. Did you ever look into those examples and find out if he was accurate? And in other words, I would hate to live in a community. I mean, I live in Century Village. People say, "Where do you live?" I say, "I live in Century Village." Some people think, well, that's stigma enough. I don't think it's a stigma.
I don't think so.
I would
Right.
hate to say I live in a community, and then they would say, well, which side of the tracks in that community?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk about that. Is this good for the workforce to
You know-
segregate them and to say, no, we're going to give you a different gym. You don't want to mingle with the rich folk. Is that a good thing? Should we be allowing that? And
This is
where
fine.
does that fall with the federal laws?
This is Palm Beach County. Imagine a child who wants to swim in the big swimming pool, but he or she is not allowed to go over there. Okay. Why? Because mom and dad don't make the money. All right. So already that kid has a stigma. And where they placed, where the workforce housing as well as the facilities for for the developmentally delayed was all along where the horse stables are. Now, I just think that we can do better. This is Palm Beach. This is the United States of America. We have to give every child, regardless of how much money they make, how much parents, what education they may have, wherever they come from, equal opportunity. And so if we're going to have $2-3 million houses with a swimming pool and a gym, we need to make sure that everybody is included within this. And I tell you what, there are a lot of young families, Fred, that would love to have grandparents living next to them or close to them in a community that can help them out with their kids, or that can talk to them about things that occurred, in their lifetime. We grew up in a community with grandparents, with all levels of people, and this is the richness of our country, and this is the best of Palm Beach County. So I took offense to that, and it was just another, shall we say, another sour point as opposed to the sweetener that I didn't approve. And you know what? I'm not faulting the developer. I'm just saying this as long as I'm there, I'm going to make sure that every child, whether they're in District 1 to District 7, has an equal opportunity to enjoy our beautiful county and our wonderful state and country. And that's just who I am, period.
To be fair, I want to tell you that there is an alternate, point of view, and it was expressed by the president of the West Boca Community Council, Sherry Scarborough, and I spoke to her about how can you support separate entrances, separate facilities. This puts a terrible psychological burden on the workforce people, that they're inferior or second-class citizens. So what she told me, and I'm just presenting this, she said that once upon a time, she tried to get economically depressed kids integrated into like West Boca High School. I don't know if it was that high school, but high school in West Boca, thinking like you thought, that they should have equal opportunity. And she said that those kids couldn't afford the designer sneakers or the special rings or wristwatches or the fancy Tommy Hilfiger shirts or whatever they wear. I'm not up on all the latest garb. What do you have to say about that? That you're forcing people to coexist that aren't necessarily looking to coexist.
Well, I just think that every child should have the same opportunity. And I think that if, when I went to school, maybe I didn't have the type of sneakers that maybe the kids in other areas of my city lived in. But I had such pride in my family and my community. I contributed to the school in many, many different ways that you could raise the kids up. And I'll tell you what, those kids who are going there with their $300 sneakers, they have a lot to learn from kids who have $50 sneakers. Sure. So we don't want to raise kids that will judge another person by how wealthy their dress is. We need to raise children that will value every person for what they contribute to the school, to their community, to our country. This is the kind of country we want to live in. So by going ahead and saying, well, we might as well just go ahead and segregate certain types of people whose income is lower, we're immediately already typecasting our population. No, we are a diverse population here, especially South Florida. And we need to celebrate everything, celebrate their differences and allow them to express it. And I tell you what, the kids with the $300 sneakers would love to be able to learn a lot from the kids with the $50 sneakers, because every child has something to offer. That needs to be celebrated.
At a recent West Boca Community Council meeting that I religiously attend, I expressed dissatisfaction with the fact that they never asked anybody in the community other than the recipients of the sweeteners what they thought about the land swap. And I didn't think that was right, because I get their newsletters. I go to all their meetings, I videotape all their meetings, so I think I know what they're talking about. And they never once mentioned that there's a hearing coming up, that we as a community need to decide, are we going to support the land swap? And she didn't do any outreach. What do you think about a community council that makes decisions without consulting with the community?
Well, my community where I live in is part of West Boca Community Council. And I used to attend the meetings as a representative of where I live. And I also like to go to every meeting that's there. I think that, I'm not going to judge a particular group. I know that Cobra is very democratic. I know the Alliance is very democratic. So I'm not going to judge the West Boca Community Council and how they run it. I just think that every group needs to be transparent. Transparency to me is very important. In my office in the county commission, I took out all the old furniture. And I don't know if you probably haven't been there, Fred. I took out all the old furniture that was there for 10, 15 years. And I replaced it, and I bought it myself with my own nickel, glass. I have a glass desk. I have a glass table. There's nothing underneath the desk. There's nothing hidden. In fact, there's no drawers, right? Because I like the idea of transparency in government. What I have, you see. And the people I represent, I listen to them. And if I don't like what they say, I'm pretty candid. Sometimes people say maybe a little bit too candid, but I think that's very, very important to have people, have the government represent the people, transparency. That's why I wanted to bring up how much money that particular area was getting in order to support the land swap. And nothing, just be transparent about it, be candid, be open. That's what government is all about.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring a healthy dollop of transparency into Century Village through my campaign for brewer president, but I don't want to turn this into about me. Now, the GL Holmes is now building, not in the Ag Reserve, which is all north of Clintmore, but they're building a huge project on what they call Johns West, which is about a mile north of Glades on Lyon, adjacent to the high school, Olympic Heights. And there's going to be 679 units in there. There'll mostly be what they call zero lot lines, which means if you go out, you'll be able to touch your neighbor's home practically. They'll be that close to each other. But there'll be some, what you would call for the rich folk homes, what they call detached, nice home. But anyway, there is now going to be a hearing, or actually two hearings, on the 10th and the 25th, regarding the property across the street, which I believe they're considering all one planned unit development. And they're calling that Johns East. It's a much smaller parcel than Johns West. And there's going to be two hearings. What can we expect from these hearings? Are these projects at all stoppable, or what can you tell us? I know they're not in the Ag Reserve, so we have no ag grounds.
Right. Well, I think what's important when we develop any area of land, any place in Palm Beach County, and as you said, it's not in the Ag Reserve, but I think we need to recall and need to remember, first of all, the location of the development. You've got a huge high school right next, contiguous, not even a contiguous to Hyder West. It would be across the street from Hyder East. There are
Johns West. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Johns West. So this is a high school. That means kids have cars, right? They got and these cars are big engines. I live in this area, the big engines, and of course we're dealing with 16, 17-year-old brains. So they just think they're invincible, especially when they're behind a powerful car. We have to be very, very careful how many units we put that's right next to an active high school. And that goes on. I mean, they've got a great football team, they have a basketball team, they do a lot of things. It's a great school. So we have to make sure that what we do is going to develop assets, going to deliver assets to the students who go to the school. Which would be better, to have next to them maybe an area where they can go and they can have a deli there, or or a snack bar. You know, I'll give you an example. Spanish River High School, which is on Jog Road, Jog and Yamato, when they let out a school, Fred, you ought to see these kids. There's about 40, 50 of them crossing crossing Jog Road and walking into that shopping center. And when they go into that shopping center, what do? They sit over there at a Dunkin' Donut or something, and they all hang out together like high school kids need to do, right? The beautiful thing about growing up in New York is that you all had a certain ice cream store you went to, or or even a neighborhood. You had to have a neighborhood community. The students and the families are going to be cheated out of not having something where their kids can safely go to across the street so that they can hang out safely in their neighborhood, in their community, right? So I think we need to remember that whatever we develop has got to take care of, to deliver the assets to the people who live there, right? And so we're losing that. What's happening with, and I don't want to, just single out GL, other developers probably as well. They want to build a suburbia, house after house after house. Just do the math and you figure out how much money it's all coming to. Nothing wrong with that. They pay taxes and I appreciate that. But we need to build a community in the Western areas where kids can walk over and their parents can meet them, or the kids can just hang out in a safe neighborhood community locale. That's what we need to develop across.
But I want to just return the focus to the coming hearings. Do you, there's something about a 20-foot wall on top of a berm. Can you tell us what is going to be discussed on the 10th? It's a zoning hearing. Are you up to speed on that? I don't want to put you on the spot, but
no, that's okay. But
is there any point? What I'm trying to get to, is there any point for us here to attend that meeting? Can this thing be stopped or limited in any way, or are these just details that they're ironing out?
Well, it's very important that the public come. It's very important that the public come, because when the public is present at these meetings, that's when all the county commissioners realize that this is what the people want. Now, it's difficult, I know, to get a parking spot, to go to West Palm Beach, and to attend and to walk in and attend these meetings. But it's very, very important that the people have their voices heard, because this is our community. And what I don't like is when people complain, why did you do this? Or why is this here? Come and talk to us. Tell us. You don't have to just tell me. We've got 7 commissioners. I often say I'm only one of 7. Tell all of us, right? So there's going to be all types of conditions that they want to put on at this zoning hearing. And I don't think that you can make it any better, because that's not the type of community we want to develop here in the Western community. Fred, we don't have a cultural center in the Western communities, do we? You live in Century Village. Is there a place that you could go to in a car in 10 minutes and see a great show? We got to go to the Kravis. We have to go either down to Broward County to they have great cultural centers down there.
We have Sunset Cove in Bert Arenson Park.
Yeah.
I got to plug in for Bert, All right, listen, I understand, but really, what you're ducking is this John's West and East fini, fait accompli, or is there any way that it can be stopped in light of all the traffic, pollution, increase in emergency response, reduction in water recharge areas for aquifer? Is there any chance of halting this GL super project just below Century Village and right next to a large high school? Or is it done deal?
It's pretty much a done deal for John's West, and I voted against it. Okay. But I think with any other development out there, I think that now the commissioners realize that when they vote no on overdevelopment, that the people like it. The people like it. I'm telling you, my fellow commissioners, my colleagues who voted down the swap, it took a lot of courage, but they realize, and thank you to Cobra and the Alliance and so many of the folks who just email us, people appreciate it. And we have a lot of folks on the commission that never felt that before. And they like it. And I appreciate that they appreciate it. And I appreciate the groups out there who supported us, because look, it's not easy to go up against a major developer.
No, no.
They're good. They're good.
I want to ask you one thing. In an earlier conversation with you, you brought up the subject of responsible development, that you're not against development, you're against irresponsible. And you gave as an example, or at least this could be an example, Uptown, where you live, work, and play within, I think it's a 95-acre plot with 454 units, including workforce housing that are fully integrated. As the commission hearing pointed out, they move around the building, so you can't really section it off. Well, that seems to be the direction that we should be headed in, because that would allow for development, that would allow for shopping, but these people would not be necessarily generating extra trips outside of the development. Right. Now, what's going on Starkey Road now? Tell us about this latest proposal that I believe you were quoted in the Sun Sentinel as being somewhat in favor of. Tell us about that. And is that what you would call responsible development?
Well, you're right on point, Fred, because, and this isn't my idea. This was something that's been developed in this country for 100 years. That is, you develop a community where you have a market, where you have a school, where you have law enforcement close by, where you have EMS close by, so that you don't generate more traffic. So a lot of people say, oh, we don't need, we want a quiet, just put 1,000 houses there. But no. When you put 1,000 houses there, you're going to have 5,000 cars. And where are they going to go to the supermarket? They got to find a Publix down Atlantic Avenue or up a Clintmore or on John. Put everything right in that live, work, play community. And this isn't new. This has been going on since the beginning of the American dream here. So what we do, and you have to have usable roads. You can't, our roads are despicable, almost to the point of being unsafe, because we all have all this development, and then we go, wow, this road is not going to be able to take our traffic. So two things, and you brought it up brilliantly, really, very well. One, live, work, and play in the same community. What does this do also for families? First of all, it encourages young families to come. Young families today, the millennials and the Gen X's and the Gen Z's, they don't want to drive. Many of them don't even have 2 cars. Imagine. We have 4 cars, but these young families may have 1 car. Why? Because they want to either get their scooters or their golf carts or their electric cars, and they want to get in and out so that they don't have to drive long distances. Doing this type of development will encourage young families to come here, which is a good thing. Secondly, it retards a lot of the traffic, because you don't have to drive out to get a good, have some good entertainment. So Meisner Park is a perfect example. Meisner Park was developed in the 1990s. I keep showing examples because this is the way we were. Boca was like this. Meisner is beautifully developed for something that was developed in the 1990s, because it has commercial, it has retail, it has residential. People can walk around. Kids are laughing and joking, and they're safe. And I think it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing. We need to replicate this in the Western communities. I don't care if it's the Ag Reserve. This is what we need. And maybe someone will build a nice theater so that we can see some cultural events. I mean, we're very cultured people out here, and it would be nice to see some good shows.
Right. And speaking of Meisner, they're making that arena into
yes,
arena, I think, and it's really going to become a first-class venue.
Because they're attracting young families, you see.
That's right.
And that's what Palm Beach County needs. We need young families in relationship with our seniors, so that we all help each other out. It's our opportunity in this county to make us really the best in the state of 67 counties.
All right, now we're getting near the end of the hour, and I know you have to get going, but I just wanted to ask you, you are entitled to one more 4-year term, and I know you've declared I've been on the website. I made a small donation because I am very supportive of your work, especially if you did nothing else, stop the Haida West. You know, when you were just 2 votes and you flipped 2 of your commissioners, you know, this was heroic, Maria, and you will always have the support of Fred Hadley and the Village Century. But
you.
tell us, you know, you're obviously you're running again. What are for going into this campaign the top 3, let's just say, issues confronting your district and what you would do about them?
Well, I think the top 3, and thank you for the support. I appreciate it. I've been in a lot of tough campaigns. I've never had an easy campaign. So the good news, Fred, is that I love politics. I love politics. I love policy. And now is a time for me to focus on these. The 3 biggest issues are the same 3 issues that I ran on originally. And that is smart development. We need to develop. We need smart development. We need a development that will better the people who live in my district, and also for the betterment of all the people. Because being in the state Senate, I represented all the way from the ocean, you know, to the Everglades. So I kind of look at everything in a holistic way, not just for my little provincial area. But the people of my district are very important to me, and I want to take care of their needs. The second thing that is very, very important is transparency in our government. We need to make sure that everything that any government official does, whether they're on the clock or not, is open to the public, and they know exactly where that is. And I think to protect our natural resources. I'm not sure who's causing climate change. I do know that we need to protect our water. We need to protect our land. We need to protect the little critters. I tell you something, when a developer, and I'm not going to name anybody in particular, but when they go out there and they start bulldozing down, you can see the critters and the little turtles. And, you know, we need to protect the people, but we need to protect the animals that share this land with us. So, and the environment is important because this is what we're giving to our kids and our grandchildren. If we run out of water, where are they going to move to? You know, so we need to protect everything about where we are. We need to be good stewards of the land. We need to be transparent, and we need to take care of good development. And the reason I say this now is that in 10 years from now, those won't be the same issues. Right now, it's very, very important. And so that's where I stand. That's where I've always stood on issues, and I'll continue with the same. I'm fighting for you, fighting for everybody. And I'm pretty tough. I can do it.
Do you expect anybody to challenge you for the Democratic nomination?
I don't know. I hope not. I hope that as a party, we stay united and we stay focused. But it's you know, I've had opponents before. I've had good opponents, strong opponents. And it just means that I have to work a little harder to fight for my position. I think everybody should have should have a campaign, because it makes you focus on what's really important to the people. And that's what I like to do. This is my life. I like to serve, but I also I know you have to fight for that. And I'm ready to take anybody on.
Hey, assuming you get the nomination, which I'm pretty confident you will, I know that there is a Republican challenger named John Fisher, who I consider myself a friend. We're both from the same Little Neck, Queens area, neck of the woods. And he's a retired fire captain that served in Fire Station 5-3 next to Century Village. He's trying to raise signatures to avoid the filing fee, et cetera, et cetera. Can you give any advice to him? I mean, I don't want you to undermine your own candidacy, but to anybody starting out, do you encourage people to get involved? What advice can you give them? He lives on Lyons Road, of course, in Escondido, as I'm sure you know, and he's drowning in traffic like we are. What advice can you give him without giving away too much strategy?
No. I think it's very important for people to run for office. I think that it's part of our American way. And if you feel strongly about an issue, I always mentor and encourage people to run. I think that it's exciting to run, and it shows that you want to do service to your community. So I think that, and I know Mr. Fisher, he's a good man, he's a good American. And I think that it's part of our process. So I think it's a good thing. And I encourage, you should run for school board, you should run for PTA, you should run for Congress, anybody who wants to give service to our community. This is the best way to do it, is to run for office.
Does that include co-brewer president? I'm getting a little plug in. I'm running in the March election for president of co-brewer. So
That's what I've heard, Fred. That's what I've seen.
you heard right. You heard
Want
right.
me to ask you a couple? No.
All right. Listen, you've been a tremendous interview, and I always love talking to you. You know, you're very easy to talk to, and we think alike on a lot of issues. You know, by way of a closing statement, you just want to, summarize or give people, something to think about as we enter this new year and the world situation is becoming, heated. What
Right.
words of wisdom or solace can you offer us?
Well, I think for 2024, what we all need to remember is to be kind to each other. Just be kind. It's every time you look around, you read the paper, you listen to the news. I get it on my phone all the time. The whole world it looks like everybody's killing each other. And I have never lived through a time where there have been so many conflicts, and so many conflicts based on religion or based on land, on dirt. Who would give their children to fight over a piece of, so anyways, I think that we here in this community, which is only way that I can have some control over, I encourage people to be kind to each other, smile a little bit more, talk to people at Publix, wave at, I know there's a lot of folks that come down and they drive a little aggressively. I always wave at them, I always show I open hand, by the way. So, wave at them and let them know it's going to be okay. We live in the greatest country in the world. We live in a place called paradise. Wake up every morning, the sun is shining, or there's a little bit of rain. It's a beautiful place to live. So anybody in Palm Beach County who is nasty, they ought to look at some other places. We have food enough to eat. If you don't, let me know. We've got food banks full of food. I've got farmers that give corn and vegetables to anybody who's hungry. So the only thing I can say is let's bless our country, let's bless each other, and let's just be kind to each other. And this is going to be a tough year, Fred. There's a lot of politics going on in 2024, but we need to remember that we're all one family here. I like to call all of us a family of Palm Beach County. If one child is hungry or a person is going without medical needs, that's part of my family. And our table is big enough to include everybody in it. So that's what I encourage everybody in 2024. And it goes to everybody and your family as well.
Well, thank you very much, Maria. You've been very, very generous with your time. And we wish you every luck in your coming election. And we'll be there to support you through hell and high water.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Fred.
Thanks so much, Maria.
Be safe. Bye-bye.